All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to this month's Classroom Management Mastery Series session. My name is Cole McFarren. I am a Faculty Support and Development Manager with Ashford University Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. And I'm really excited to be here tonight to talk to you specifically about video in the classroom, something that is very near and dear to my heart, and is something that I think that the rest of the world, can kind of relate to us a little bit more so, in the last couple of months or so, with everybody having to really work on how to manage these virtual relationships and engage people virtually. I feel like we have a leg up because we've been doing this for a while, but some of us are still getting used to video. Some of us are pros. So I really want to just have a conversation today with everybody, with folks that maybe haven't dipped their toes in the water, with folks that maybe have a little bit, and then with some of the pros here that we have today. I hope that, folks can share some advice for those that are just getting started. So I'm really excited to get started on this topic today. We have just a couple quick pieces of housekeeping from the messages from the seal that we wanted to take care of. I did want to remind folks that this is part of a series. We wanted to be able to provide folks with professional development this year based around the classroom. That kind of scaffolds on topics. And we really took the LMS survey that we take every year and we used it to really guide this work. So we have a year-long series, but we're excited to be able to offer this as a badging opportunity. If folks are willing to come to 9 out of the 11 sessions that we'll hold and then do a quick professional development activity afterward and record their attendance, we will be giving out badges at the end of the year, which we're really excited about having that opportunity. We have lots and lots of events going on all the time, and one of the best ways to keep up to date on those is to go to the CETL SharePoint page and keep an eye on that calendar. That always has our most up-to-date calendar of events. This coming Tuesday, June 3rd, we have the Get Center Ed Professional Development Series, both an early and a later session from the Center for Enhancement of the First Year Experience. And then Wednesday, June 17th, we have a DSM-5 database webinar specifically from the library. They're going to be doing a series where they're diving into specific databases throughout the year. So we're really excited to have those coming up on the calendar as well. And we wanted to still, we mentioned this last month, and we're sure that you've heard it, in your email, and you hear it on the news, and you hear it everywhere. But we just wanted to thank everybody. We know that our faculty are working really hard, and our students are. While the world is like kind of maybe getting back to normal a little bit, our students are still really reeling from some of the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we know that our faculty have already done so much to be flexible with and accommodate those students and to work with them and be patient with them. So thank you for all you've done and all you will continue to do as this ripple, effects kind of keeps impacting our students. We do have a page that I wanted to share in the chat quick with all of our response information here. And we'll be posting lots of links today. So if you miss one or two in the chat, we'll be sending out the deck with the recording of this series. So if you miss it in the chat, that's not a big deal. You'll be able to get it later. But thank you. So in that vein, actually, we actually have some new exciting news that I wanted to mention before we got into video today. So in the vein of supporting our students and really making sure that we're doing all that we can to support them through these times, you may notice a difference in some of the reports that you received in your faculty email. So the Friday before your course begins, every faculty member actually receives what's called a course enrollment report. And what that does is you get it every Friday before the course starts, and it'll include the roster, the student email address, the advisor information, including their email address. And we had just added a few more fields, so it'll now show their degree level, their major, which is really cool, and then their academic leave information. So you'll actually be able to see on that report if one of your students is returning from academic leave. And we are definitely encouraging faculty to reach out to those students, just send them a quick note, say, hey, I noticed you're just coming back, welcome. I just wanted to establish myself as a point of support as you're getting acclimated back to things. So we would really love it if folks would be able to check that out. There's a quick video walkthrough. Some of you might have noticed too, those reports, don't seem to be as consistent, but a lot of the reason is because some of that goes to your junk and clutter. And this video walks through the new report and a way to make sure that report doesn't go to your junk and clutter if you want to keep an eye out for that. So wanted to just throw a couple quick plugs out there before we dove into the data. And our last one of our most exciting ones is the call for proposals for TLC is due June 30th. I don't know if you heard, But this year we had to move our TLC 100% online, which is actually no different than any other. It's always been online. But we're really, really excited that we're really making an effort and an emphasis on getting like external people involved. It's always been a great showcase for our faculty. And even last year we got some more students involved. So we're really, really working on expanding it this year. So we want to see proposals from you. Please do, share with your social media networks and other, people at other institutions. We would love to have as many outside people as we could. So one final plug for our upcoming Teaching and Learning Conference that's coming up before we know it. So I want to outline just a couple super quick session objectives for today. I'm going to actually just be taking up about half of the time today. I am going to go ahead and just walk through like some super basic video stuff with mostly the native Canvas video and audio tools, really just kind of touching the tip of the iceberg with some of that, but giving some of the basics. And then talking about some of the best practices. We were able to compile some research on some of the themes that we've seen over our years and years of doing research on video in the classroom and what some of those themes seem to be that we keep seeing. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but I want to leave a lot of the time for our very own Dr. Michelle Rosser-Majors, who is going to be talking about her experiences as a faculty member using video and having that presence be there. And specifically with some third-party tools that she uses. With this conversation today, I was hoping that we could do justice because it's such a huge topic. There's the native Canvas tools, and then there's about a million other ways that you can do it, with some other tools incorporating it. So we're excited to just dip our toes into this and hopefully provide you with lots of links and lots of things that you can look up afterward and keep working at. So it's so fascinating to even think about. I was trying to think about my journey, using video as a faculty member. And before, while we were in e-college, it just wasn't possible. You could really work around, but it was the technology even 4 years ago was just not quite there. It was hard. So when we came over to Canvas, we knew that this video, that native video recorder was really going to be a game changer, and we really kind of wanted to get in front of it. We really did an emphasis. We pushed it, for the first year or two. But people were still getting used to Canvas, honestly, and some got on board right away and some not as quickly. You can see from the data that we use in the LMS survey, the Canvas video and audio recorder, especially around November last year, you can see is not a faculty favorite right now. And I can understand why. I think that especially around that time, there were really some lag time issues with the uploading. I feel like that's improved quite a bit over the last 6 months or so, to where hopefully those numbers that satisfaction would be bumped up a little bit more, but hopefully, with a couple of tips and tricks as well today, we'll be able to bump that. But the other thing too, that I wanted to throw out there, and I don't have a chart with this one, is when we asked faculty actually what they wanted training on, video was the #1 topic that we got in when we asked on the LMS survey. So we knew that we wanted to hit on it this year, and this seemed like a perfect time to do so. So at a very high level, there's a few different places that you can really easily get to the native Canvas audio and video tool in the Canvas classroom. So the #1 would be, you can see that from the screenshots here. I'll go ahead and dive into an actual physical classroom here in a moment. You can see on the one on the left from the inbox message, anytime you use your inbox, you can actually push a button and then you can attach a quick audio or video message there. Down at the bottom of SpeedGrader, I don't know if you realize that there's a little bitty play button down there where you can bring up that audio and video recording tool as well. And I wanted to just maybe, if people could just like throw in the chat real quick. There's so many different ways, and the faculty that I've talked to over the years, there's just about 100 different ways you can approach it. Some people really like weekly announcement video. Some people really like to hit on the introductions and respond to every student with a video. So what are some of the ways that all of you, like to incorporate video? And if you're not doing it yet, that's also perfectly fine. You can be brave and let that out too. But yeah, there's just so many different ways. So many people do, Michelle will talk a little bit about doing feedback with video, and some people like to, I'm seeing discussion responses, announcements. Yes, I'm seeing lots and lots of good stuff. Kathleen, yes, principles of finance with mentor sessions with students. Oh, that's great. Introductions. A lot of people I have found really, that I've talked to over the last couple of years specifically, really like to hit strong in those introductions. They get that engagement, they make that connection quick, which I think is great. I think that's a great place to do it. And I think announcements too are a really nice bang for your buck. I mean, everybody's going to see it. It's one that you can do for everybody. In some instances, you can even reuse them from class to class. I know that that's another really, really nice way to be efficient about it. One of the daunting things, or what seems daunting about video, is it seems like it takes forever. And it takes some work, it takes some legwork, but the more you get used to it, it really, really does become just a part of your regular teaching. So I want to take just a quick moment to walk through what that looks like on the live side. So a lot of the instances we were seeing, where folks are using it is within this rich content editor. I showed where you could use it in the inbox and the speed grader as well, but a lot of it is within the rich content editor here. So again, we'll pull up that little play button. And what that will pull up, I'm not actually going to let it try to share my video because that would break my computer more than likely since I'm already using my video. But you can see right now it's even detecting my voice. There's the microphone. And then there's even options here, right, where you can, that's one of the other things I wanted to mention super quickly is that while there is the native tool that we can use right here to just record our video, normally my picture would be right here and we could click record. But there is a way to upload media here too. So if you're using an external tool and you have an MP4 file or you have an audio file that you've recorded, you can also upload those there, which I think actually those uploads are quite a bit quicker than what I've seen with the native Canvas tool, if that lag time is an issue for you too. So a couple other things I just wanted to throw out. I'm going to go ahead and X that out because I don't want it to go crazy. So when going in discussions, I've noticed in particular is when you are trying to leave more than one video per tab, it doesn't seem to want to do that very well. So a lot of times, like if you know you're going to go in your introductions, you'll record one video and then you'll try to load it up again and it won't actually load the video recorder, which is kind of a pain. But what I found works really, really well is actually if you have multiple tabs open, say I know I want to do 5 video responses in my discussion. I'll actually open 5 different tabs. I'll go in, record a video, hit save, and then while that one is actually saving, I can go over to the next one, read through the post, figure out what I'm going to say. Usually by then it's actually uploaded and I can just hit save. But it'll actually work, like even if I have to record a new video and that other one is still uploading, you can have multiple windows up working with that. So that's a really nice way to get around that lag time if that seems to be an issue with your connection. Another thing that I've noticed specifically with, for a lot of our full-time faculty, it might still relate to a lot of our associates depending on the machine they're using and if they use it for other work. But if you're using a VPN connection, actually I've found that tends to slow things down a little bit. So unless you're in a system where you really need to be connected to some certain system, you could definitely disconnect your VPN to see if that speeds up your bandwidth just a little bit. It's helped for some people. The other issue with it is that there's not a great way to, once it's in there and saving, you click save, and then there's not a great indicator of how far it is. It actually looks a lot of times like it's not doing anything, and I know that's a kind of a hurdle for a lot of folks. But it's just kind of one of those things. Usually if it hasn't taken after about 5 minutes or so, yeah, it might be worth another go or checking your connection, but the multiple tab strategy seems to work pretty well for me. And I think one other thing I just wanted to mention, super quick before I check the chat was, well, two quick things. A lot of times when I'm going in and I'm reading, a discussion post, for example, like if I'm responding to a student's discussion with a video, I like to take notes. So for example, I'll be going through their post and I'll say, oh, okay, I know I want to talk to them about, this topic that they talked about. I wanted to ask them about this. And then I wanted to challenge them to think of another example, So I'll maybe even just jot down like maybe 3 quick notes that I wanted to say to them, here in the text box, and I can have that there and handy when I'm pull up the video, I can have it just right there, which is kind of nice if you get brain freeze once you get on camera, which is a nice strategy to have. And that's also nice if you have, for an announcement, say, for example, you want to use a little bit more of a scripted approach. You can actually have it right there on the screen, an outline of what you want to say, or even word for word if you're more comfortable with that. So I'm just going to double check the chat just to make sure I didn't go too far off here. Yes, Lynn. Lynn, we're going to talk a little bit about captioning and that's another one. We could do a whole session on accessibility and making sure that that's a piece of it. And I'm going to just barely touch on it here in a little bit. but it's definitely something that we could talk a lot more about. You know, I have heard of different people with Apple having a little bit of an issue with the video recorder, but I would have to dive more in depth with it to really see what that would be more like. I think Kathleen, if you would like to follow up on that one, we could take a closer look. But I think mostly, I'm going to go ahead and pop back over to this part of the presentation. And then just get into a couple of the best practices that, you know, I think that we've seen in our research over the years. I mean, we've read lots and lots, and I mean, so many of us have been to conferences and seen presentations on it. You know, what's the perfect amount of time for a video? You know, how should I talk? What do I look like? What is all this? What are these best practices, you know, for presenting in a virtual setting? So we want to talk just a little bit about some of the research we found, and a big thank you and shout out to Stephanie Adams, who compiled a lot of this, and we'll actually share a lot of the articles that we used for this here later on. But a lot of the research about length seems to be pretty much along the same note. I don't think we've found any sources that said that a video should be any longer than 6 minutes. A lot of the research seemed to really indicate that about 6 minutes is where you really start to lose people's attention. And then actually some of the research we looked at, see, this is what happens after 5 minutes. The student just goes, where are they going with this? What is this? How does this relate to me? So one of the resources was actually saying that 4 minutes is ideal. So, you know, I would say 5 minutes or less. I mean, I would really shoot for something like that. And that'll help your upload time too. If you're going any longer than that, that's going to take a while to upload. But that's about when people stop watching videos in general, and specifically educational ones again. A lot of the research really, you know, emphasizes that faculty should be conversational when they, you know, present in a virtual way. I mean, there's definitely something to be said for formality and for seeming professional. And if you really want to put on a suit and tie, you can. That's perfectly fine. But a lot of the ways that, you know, the ways that we talk about the conversational style, I have found that particularly, like if I use a script to, you know, create a video, I'll write up a script and then I'll say it out loud. And the way that I write is definitely different than the way that I talk. So sometimes I have to go in and tweak a script to make it a little bit more conversational. And I find that it's easier for me to deliver, and it just sounds a little more conversational. And that's what people have really said works better with students than a rigid, you know, robot-like instructor. And even be able to use humor. You know, I thought that one of the things that from this research that stood out to me was, you know, one of the things that really sticks out to students is faculty members giving their professional experiences. So think about how much that means. I mean, I can sit here as a professor and read, you know, somebody the textbook, and that doesn't mean much. But, you know, when I'm talking about my professional experiences that, you know, tie into class or tie into this week's upcoming assignment, that's where the video really comes in. It's that double whammy. It's like you can see my face and you have this personal story. I'm not just talking about these abstract concepts. So that really just kind of reinforces that conversational tone that we've heard about. And I want to just, this is another one we could do a whole webinar on, but I want to just talk briefly about setting the stage, you know, for what your background looks like and what you're going to wear, because it's daunting. I mean, does anybody have an office that actually looks like that? I mean, if you do, that's awesome and you're set, you don't have to worry about it. But most of us don't have a space like that. I mean, especially now we're working with kids in the next room, and if you have a blank wall, you know, behind you, you're lucky. So my general advice would be, you know, think about it, but don't overthink it. Your students are way more interested in seeing your face and what you have to say and hearing that intonation than they are with seeing your fancy, you know, diplomas on the wall. Diplomas on the wall are great. That's actually a really easy way I've seen people dress up walls. It's a really easy, if you have a blank wall and a couple of diplomas, you're absolutely set. Like that's really all you need. And you need even less than that. A blank wall is perfectly fine too. But just take a little time to play around with it too. You know, turn your camera on, see what you look like, mess with the lighting. Maybe the overhead light doesn't work well. I have a couple offsetting lamps actually, which does better than, you know, a lot of overhead, or you have people with lights behind the back, which just makes their face dark. So take a little time to play with it. Background, like I said, don't overthink it. It's really not, if you have a great space, awesome. If not, you can make something that's pretty simple. I've even seen people buy screens. You can buy a $30 screen to put behind you if you're really in a cramped space. That I've seen really work well. Clothing, again, you know, like I'd said, I think that a lot of people would lean toward a little more casual approach. But even just thinking about like not wearing stripes, like sometimes stripes show up really weird in the camera. So see what that looks like. You know, you think about noises. I mean, that's not always going to be unavoidable. But the funny thing that I think has happened, you know, in the last couple of weeks is we would kind of say, if a pet comes across your keyboard, it's not a big deal. You know, if the cat comes up and jumps on your shoulder, you don't have to start over. You really don't. But I think even, you know, especially in the last couple months, I mean, it has just become way, way more socially acceptable, I think, because we're working at home with kids and all these people have these different situations around. So even when my kid would come up and yell at me, as long as it wasn't profanity, I probably wouldn't reshoot the video. You know, we're kind of at that point where I think we've kind of gotten more into that virtual world where it's not taboo to have a kid or a pet around because these are kind of the situations we're in. So it's just really interesting to think about how that dichotomy has changed maybe a little bit over the last couple months. And I did want to post, so we do have some resources that we created a while back, actually when we just got over to Canvas, but that are still very, very applicable to this video work. And this first one is getting started with video. And it was one that we wanted to make sure we had ready for faculty when we got over, because we knew there were these different things like accessibility that we really, really had to think about. So this guide in particular is a good one because it'd be a good refresher after this one if you're just getting started. There's some links to some technical guides like from Canvas. There's also some resources on accessibility. So the guidance that we have provided in this document specifically goes into some of the accessibility resources and our general guidance. See, this is the unfortunate part is that the native video tools in Canvas are not, they don't make captioning super easy. I'll put it that way. It's definitely possible and it can be done, but with the native Canvas tools, it's not super easy. For something like an announcement, we would absolutely recommend a transcript be provided just because all of your students are going to be reading it. We want to make sure that we're providing that level of accessibility. We also encourage posting an announcement at the beginning of a course just to say, hey, I'm going to be using video throughout course. You know, please reach out to me if you have any accommodations or you would need some type of captioning or anything like that if I'm communicating with you via video. But then we will get into, I think even what Michelle will get into in a little bit is there are some resources. So for example, if you upload something to YouTube, it automatically captions a lot of things. So there are workarounds to where, you know, if you have that week one announcement or like an introduction video that you wanted to do that you'll use over and over again, definitely consider going that route potentially because that makes the accessibility piece work a lot better. We have not necessarily, like say if you're doing a one-on-one response to a student, we're not giving the guidance to be super, super stringent about making sure all that's captioned. In an ideal world, it absolutely would be. And in an ideal world, it would do it for us. And the technology is getting closer and closer. But that's kind of the point that we're at right now. But definitely, if there are questions that arise around this issue in particular, please reach out to your CETO representative and we can get connected with some folks in Access and Wellness and make sure that we're taking care of everything that needs to be taken care of in that regard. So. And I wanted to mention super quickly, I know that not as many faculty use this resource, but I have heard of some faculty who have used it with a lot of success actually. And that's the conference tool that we have in Canvas. So we actually have kind of a Zoom-like tool that exists right within Canvas called Conferences that you can set up to where you can use screen sharing, you can use your video, you can use audio to communicate with students, and also kind of a whiteboard tool, which is really cool, to where you can set up live office hours. I've seen some faculty do, you know, if you have a one-on-one meeting, you can definitely use it for that. But that's also a resource that's available to us via the Canvas native tools that exist there. So. And then, like I said, Steph Adams was actually able to bring together a lot of research on these topics. And this is, again, just the tip of the iceberg on some of these best practices and what it means to really use video effectively in higher ed. But we'll definitely have those links available when we send out the deck afterwards. So. And without further ado, I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for our guest to share some of her expertise and maybe even answer a couple questions if we have time at the end. So I want to make sure that we give time to Michelle. And thank you so much for being here and for sharing your expertise with us today. I'm going to go ahead and let you share your screen.
Great. Well, thank you, Cole, and to everyone for the invitation. And it's great to see so many people in the room and interested in this. I, like Cole, am very, very, very passionate about this subject. And I think once a person learns how to effectively, and I think that's a big word that's important in all of this, how to effectively use video in the classroom, it really can make a huge difference. So I'm just very grateful to the whole team for the invitation. And so hopefully I'll be going through some things fairly quickly because I'm going to be showing a lot of examples of things that we promote in our program and things that I've been trying and manipulating and trying to find the best ways to use them, and really started getting really, really excited about this when we started working on the social presence unit of the instructor presence certification, and it just, a light came on. And I've always loved using video, but it really, once you figure out how to do it more effectively, it's really exciting to see what your students do. And so I did want to answer a couple of comments or questions that came through earlier. Talked about the load lag. I agree, that's one reason where I kind of got out of the habit of using Canvas. I do think it's getting better, Cole. I totally agree. I will say that some of the resources I'm going to share here, there is much less of that lag, but I'm in total agreement with using tabs. We're going to learn that even sharing different videos from other sources by using tabs, it makes your life just a lot faster and easier in the classroom, which is always something to know about. And then Edward had mentioned earlier, right now, I just wanted to highlight it. Thank you, Edward, that Google Video is offering free software right now, because what we're getting ready to talk about is there's so many options, and Google Video would be a great one to do. Also, I think I put it in the chat, or I tried to, Screencast-O-Matic that I'm going to show you here in a minute. It does have captioning. You have to kind of go through it and make sure it got your voice correct, but it does great. A little FYI, green screens are about $8 at Amazon, in case anybody's interested. And the Zoom backgrounds are actually getting a lot better without even using a green screen for people if you just need to kind of get that background away. So I'm just going to kind of go through some of the things that I've learned and some of my our instructors have shared with me. What we're finding is one of the big takeaways I hope people, and I encourage people to do, is to embed videos rather than just link them, because often students will ignore a link unless, again, we can kind of manipulate that with images and making it larger and some different things. But when you include videos, a lot of times they're more likely to actually watch it because it's right in the classroom and they don't have to go anywhere else. The personal messages also create a more connected tone in the classroom, increasing your social presence. So your face or the pictures you're sharing are right there in the classroom for them. And it just helps create that tone, especially in week one where we have such quick courses. TED Talks are also something I've gotten where when they're applicable to your area, your field, they're just very familiar. People know what TED Talks are, and so it can pique their interest because often people watch TED Talks outside of the classroom. Online lectures and videos can also increase cognitive engagement. Again, I really encourage the embedding of that. And I'm going to show a couple of hints on how to make those a little bit more exciting than you just talking, or how you can get away with just your voice and having some pretty engaging videos for your students as lectures each week and different things. And then videos can offer much more information and use actually less time than the written words. And so one of the examples I'll show, I don't use a lot of video for just simple feedback. I use a lot of written feedback and in-paper feedback, but I'll show an example of when I feel like a student is really needing that extra help. They're just not understanding the content, and I feel like the feedback might go unnoticed, that I'll use a video, and I'll actually use Screencast-O-Matic to do that feedback, and we'll go over why I actually use that particular software. So the first thing we're going to quickly look at is just a couple of methods of including things from other places. Pardon me. YouTube, great place to find different helpful videos about content, especially in cases where perhaps you have a student that's not understanding the level of articles they're reading, different things, they need things just in a little bit more layman's terms. But you can find all kinds of things from academic resources, and it's just, you can do a quick Google of whatever your student's talking about, whatever you're talking about, to help those. And then I use Jiffy. You can embed a video with Jiffy to congratulate a student for a great discussion, or to just make your room have a softer, warmer tone, more exciting tone, and I'll show a little example of that. So for YouTube, you can also use the Canvas button inside there, and many of you have probably seen that. I wanted to feature that, but I'm also going to show how to embed a regular, if you go straight to YouTube, I have a tendency to keep up another tab, and I go in so I can do faster searches when I'm looking to make sure that I stay on the same topic that the student is wanting to go with, or what maybe they perhaps did not understand that I can give more information about. So, but in the Canvas room, you can push that YouTube button. You're just going to go up to the top and you're going to put in, as you can see there on the bottom, what you're looking for, what the subject is. And then there's just a simple embed button where you can go in and add that to embed to the video. I like the medium and large personally, because it just tends to be a little bit, gets their attention more. Sometimes I found the embed small just shows a little blue box, and they have an easier time of just ignoring that rather than actually starting it and playing it and seeing what's happening in that video. So also, if you're going to embed the code from the site, it's pretty easy. Again, I keep another tab. I actually created a quick video for you. It's from Animoto that I'll show later. And again, in this kind of locks together on why I do it, but it's a little video on how to do the embed code straight from the YouTube that I created for you. And so I thank you for indulging me a little bit. We'll get more into Animoto, but it can be just a fun way to even help your students learn how to add images to their discussions so they can feel more engaged in different things, and we'll get to that here in just a few minutes. Jiffies are really fun too, I found. Especially, I use them a lot when students respond to me in the discussion forums. And so I'll write back to them and maybe they say, oh, wow, that was cool. And so I can say, you know, good job, home run, you got it right, you know, you're doing well, just all kinds of different things from Jiffy. You do the same thing, you go to the embed code, and you're gonna copy it the same way you would a YouTube into a discussion forum. Lots of options for those. So personalized videos. Again, lots and lots of options. The Canvas site can be good to leave videos in the announcements, discussions, and etc. But we're gonna go over some others. We've got screencast that automatic. It tends to be my preference, and I'll kind of show you how and why. It's my preference to use over Canvas in some situations. Animoto, it's great for sharing pictures, even giving some instructions without having to be too instructional. Lots of fun, free music you can add. Just kind of livens it up, especially if you're trying to help somebody learn kind of a procedure thing. Zoom recordings are great. We've used those. We've actually used those, and we put those into Screencast-O-Matic. Projects that are a lot larger, and I'll show you a few examples of those. I listed some more, just that there's many, many more. And then of course we had some others shared in the chat earlier, and many of them can be good. I know Screencast is free for a certain amount of time. I actually do some other videos that I'll go into for our program. And so I pay a little bit more, $15 or something for it for the year, but I get a longer time, and it's really helpful. So I love this quote: our danger is not too few, but too many options. Be puzzled by innumerable alternatives. That is exactly the case for video, and so you'll find your favorite and what works best for you. So some Canvas examples for the announcements. Again, Cole went into most of this, so I'm not going to go into it very heavy, but you just push that Canvas button, and I will play a little bit of this one just to kind of what he talked about. Your background's fine. I use screencasts or green screens for different projects. It just depends on the projects. But what I've found is the students really do like it when we look like ourselves. Lots of times I'll wear a cap. It's later in the evening, and they seem to appreciate that. So just a hint of this.
Hi everyone, Doc here. Just wanted to give a little clarification on cognitive load. I am finishing up grading your assignments right now.
So see, not a whole lot to it, and I'm not going to play the whole thing for you, but you're saying, hey, I just want to help you out. This is kind of what I'm seeing, and they get to see me. It also, I find that sometimes when we write certain things, our tone can't come through the way we want it to come through. And so a video can actually do that. And so my next example is going to be why I actually use Screencast-O-Matic versus Canvas on the grading feedback. When we go into Canvas, we can talk about their paper and look at it. But with Screencast-O-Matic, and I'll show you an example about that, I can show the paper with either my video there or not there. And I can go through the paper with them step by step.
Hi Jessica, I just really wanted to walk through your paper.
Oops. My apologies for that. Pause.
With you so that maybe it would help understand a little bit about my feedback inside of it. And whatever we can pull out of that, we can actually successfully move into long-term memory. But if we don't move it, actually not accurate. Extinction is about situation, how we can draw on things that we've done in the past. And so my examples that
So again, on something like this was someone that I wasn't so sure would go in and read the feedback because it was quite extensive. There was a lot of content misunderstandings. So my hope is that by using this where I engaged with her personally face-to-face, it would be more personal and she'd listen to what she needed to do to improve and perhaps reach out to me if she needed more help. So there's a little bonus too to using instructional training videos. You can send them to examples for your instructors. You can also, we use, I'll show you a couple examples here. I have one video that I quickly did with Screencast that shows my faculty how to create Outlook groups, send groups emails faster. So if they're a course lead, that'll help them send emails weekly and different things so they're not having to re-enter that all the time. And then also the next example will be where I sent an example, and I do this quite often in coaching, of what I want a discussion to look like. But the discussion, it's really hard to just take snippet pictures of it when they're a little longer. And so I'll show you both of those examples. So first is the example of just putting something very quickly together. My faculty actually tend to like this a whole lot better than me writing out instructions in written form.
Hey everybody. I just figured this was the best time of any to go ahead and send a video on how to easily create groups in your emails, because we're all going to have a lot more lead courses, it sounds like.
So see, very personal, just telling them, hey, I think this can help you. And then again, this has no audio. This is just, I left a coaching email and I said, hey, please look at the examples of what we're wanting to see in our classroom. And this happened to be an example that we sent of something that we would love to see as a discussion posting to a student from an instructor. And as you can see, it just rolls through the discussion so they can see the different discussion examples and not have to look at a whole lot of pictures. And so there's just a lot of bonuses I found to being able to quickly use Screencast. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to show you one that's a little bit more professional and fun, and then I'm going to do a quick walkthrough on how quick it is, because there's an app for your computer, super easy. You push a button and we'll get to that. But this is actually one we created for our Psych 101 entry course. It's a little bit more professional, but I hope it gives you an example. I would play a little bit more of it, not all, just to give you an idea of what Screencast-O-Matic can do for you. You can edit, you can insert videos inside of videos, you can put overlays of, say, content, things you want to highlight, and all of this in a very easy software to use, and it can be extremely beneficial to creating something a little bit more professional without having to waiting for professional services. So I'll play a little bit more of this one for our 101.
Welcome back to the final episode of Get Psyched, Skills Worth Developing. As in previous episodes, we'll have Dr. Anderson here to help go over a little bit of the content for your final week. We'll also, again, listen to the last of the tips from your instructors. as well as hear from an alumni and learn about two last people that had degrees in psychology. I hope you enjoyed the last episode. I hope you've enjoyed the course. And again, I'll be back with you in a bit. Stephanie?
Thank you, Michelle. Stephanie Anderson here for our final week in the course. This week, we focus on mental and physical health. We will explore motivation and emotion, health, and psychological disorders and therapies. But first, a fun fact. Did you know psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud's theory and therapy, designed to treat mental disorders by digging into the unconscious mind, is more commonly referenced outside the field of psychology, in the humanities, for example? Although Freud is perhaps the most widely recognized psychologist, psychoanalysis is no longer mainstream, and psychologists place greater emphasis on more scientific, evidence-based theories. Today, psychologists recognize a myriad of factors that contribute to behavioral and mental health. For example, some disorders, such as schizophrenia, occur at roughly the same rate, about 1%, around the world, indicating a strong biological component. Others, like major depression, vary in terms of prevalence and even reported symptoms, demonstrating the role of psychological and sociocultural influences. Defining mental illness is no simple task, as abnormality alone isn't enough to constitute a disorder. So, psychologists rely on the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, considering deviance, dysfunction, distress, danger, and duration. Are you ready to discover more? Be sure to review the announcements and read the required resources for this week. Note that assigned work includes one discussion, one weekly review, and the final paper. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your instructor. And now, get psyched to learn more about motivation, emotions, and health, as well as psychological disorders and therapy. Back to you, Michelle.
So I'll stop that one right there. It goes on a little bit, but all of this stuff can be done in Screencast-O-Matic, which is simple overlays. It has tools that make everything, go from one scene to the next scene, and it's really a lot of fun. I have been using Screencast for a while, but it's really not a very difficult process, and it can just be really adaptable, especially for lectures. I love it for lectures. So there's a downloadable app for your computer. You can see up on the right that it's Screencast-O-Matic app. It shows up on my bottom of my screen. I have the arrow going down. It's just that little circle. And on the left, it shows what it's going to look like. It's going to tell me that I want to pause it or I want to start it. It actually has, Screencast-O-Matic also has tons and tons of training tutorials, very easy to understand. And the website is just very easy to find. There's a simple button to record. When it pulls up, you just select where you want to record. So it might just be half your screen you're recording, or just that little discussion area. You can pull that little square just to record what you want. You push record. You can actually make it so it only hears the computer audio. Maybe it just hears your audio. And it's just all these really simple buttons. Once you upload it, you have the option of either downloading it to your computer. That way you can just upload it straight to Canvas. Or you can actually have a link to the video through Screencast-O-Matic. I'll make a link for you. Often with my faculty, I use the link. When we're recording some type of extra training or something, I'll use that and just send it out an email and put it in our Canvas resource site. But for students, I most often download it and then upload it into Canvas. On the right, I just wanted to show you how at the bottom it says blur. All kinds of tools. In the timeline, you can literally just go through and say, where do you want things? Do you want it to show the cursor? Do you not want it to show the cursor? And so it can be a lot of fun. My only warning, it might be too much fun. I always have to watch how much time I spend doing that when I'm busy. So here are the options for editing. Again, there's cut, copy, the overlays, there's blurs, there's images, there's, oh my goodness, so many things, text. There's just so many things that and in that video example I showed you, so we could accent words, Dr. Anderson would say, to keep the student engaged. You can also, again, I'd mentioned the computer sounds or your voice. You can have your webcam with you on it. You can actually do that whole thing that we just did that I showed you with Stephanie without our faces on there. We could just do it using our audio and adding the images and text. And again, The images can overlay, especially if you feel like you've made a mistake or you have to cut out something so it makes your face look weird, you can just embed an image over that little spot about something you're talking about and fade it in and fade it out, and nobody knows or is any wiser that you had a little mistake. So it's kind of fun. So last but not least, I wanted to show you Animoto. It's something that I started using a long time ago. It's definitely much more, in my opinion, for something that's not necessarily when audio is needed, but when you're wanting to create a mood. So I've done holiday meet and greets with our faculty. We've done thank you videos to the advisors, but I do have a meet your instructor, an events example, and I have, my apologies again, whenever I try to move something out of the way so I can actually get to the video, it makes me go up. So anyway, I'm going to show some examples here of different things we have here. So a meet your instructor, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but again, feel the mood. I'll skip through it and you can see how I don't even really have to say anything to introduce the students to who I am. So it's just kind of fun. You can leave them messages, and I get a lot of comments because, again, I'm not just talking. They're kind of getting an idea of who I am that way. I have others that I'll do talking on, and so I just kind of transition in and out. And so I also show you this one. This is something that we use in our program to introduce our students to some of the faculty. Oops, go back to that real quick. And then, and on that, I don't know if you could see it because mine is covering it up and I can't move it, but it does have their name, and we go through several of our faculty and introduce them to the students. I also highlight events that are happening for our instructors and for our students. You could do it for either. And again, I don't have to say a word or even have my face showing. And I definitely won't go through all those because we had several faculty members throughout our program participate and everybody dressed up. We have Valentine parades, we have Halloween parades, we do different things, and I put it all in a video for everybody and I send it out, and that helps everybody get to know each other, especially where we're such a large program. And then I included this. I haven't used this in a long time. And so the idea of it, you might like, you might not, but you can do funny things too, or informational things. I actually did a funny Halloween academic integrity thing a few years ago, just during the time about being aware of plagiarism and different things. And this is several years ago that this one was done, but I'll play just to show you the different things you can do. And so that's really all I have, kind of a happy videoing. I'll stop sharing and see if anyone has any questions or anything. And I just love it. And I hope everyone knows I'm totally around if anybody wants help, because I just love it. Cole, were there any questions in the chat that you noticed?
I was just going to dive over there. And thank you so much for just sharing your, I mean, I can tell you that you just have a library of, of all these things that you've worked on over the years, and just all those all the experience making that. Is just I'm just so glad you were able to share that with our faculty today. I was very happy to.
Thank you. But I think you hit the nail on the head, Cole, and that's, I am so much more effective at using video now than I was back when I created some videos. And so knowing, that student population, the 4-minute rule is good, but also a student that does need that extra help and needs that feedback, that face-to-face, I need to go through this paper. We really need to sit down at the desk together and talk about this. That one's longer, but I certainly think they'll spend more time with that than they would reading all that feedback if they're struggling. And so, I believe using video, images, everything can get attention from students, make them want to learn more about it, make them want to, I use the Jiffies a lot. It's almost, it kind of goes back to a theory that I learned about years ago. It's called Fred Jones management. And it's about the students all wanting to get those kudos. So if I'm giving kudos to people's discussion forums for replying back to me with these little cute Jiffies, like you knocked it out of the park, other students want to get a Jiffy too. So they might be responding to me next week. And so it's just kind of fun. So I just love it.
Yeah. Well, so there was one question that, kind of seemed to pop up a couple times that I would love to get your 2 cents on is, and it's another one of those daunting or like seemingly daunting thing is like, how do you have the time to do it? How do you do it in a time efficient way? What's kind of one way that you tackle the efficiency piece, I guess?
Number one, be careful. Big projects, oh yeah, that'll take a lot of time. The Psych 101 thing, it took a long time for us to get that together, but now it's in the course. It has been in the course forever. It's a weekly deal. When it comes to announcements, there are certain things that we all know that students are all going to struggle with, or 90% of them. So I have videos that I'm able to use, let's say in week 2 of this course, because I know most likely this theory is going to be tough, so I can reuse it. I also find, I think, again, going with what you said, don't worry so much about what's behind you and all of that stuff. I do like to have a quiet spot, mainly because I can't focus if other things are going on. But, be willing to just be real with your students. Say, hey, I just wanted to drop in real quick. I want to say you guys did awesome on your discussions this week. It takes a whole 30 seconds. You push the button, it's gone. And find out what works. If something's not working and you're not getting responses from students like you want, ditch the idea, move to something else. Try something else, because if it's working, then that time becomes so worth it to you. Because I don't know about anybody in this room, but when I write out a long discussion, feedback, response in the forums, and there's crickets, it's like, and so when that's not working, and then I leave an audio and I can get that response, and then I start seeing other students want to respond that way. I think that's important. I think it's also important, I've started letting students know how to do it themselves. Do you want to do video for this? Here's a way you could do this. Or do you want to know how to share your images in your poster introduction? This is how you do that. And many more students feel like you're not the only one that knows the rules. They know them too, and they get to have fun and participate. So I don't know, it is time consuming, but you can make a library. But sometimes just going off the cuff for 30 seconds is the best thing ever.
I would agree. It's funny because I would have, and that's the other thing too, is like you find things that work and then you find things that don't. I used to do like a weekly announcement, and for whatever reason, it wasn't really working that great. So I kind of ditched that, and then I started really doing it in the discussions, and I've seen, good things happen from it. So, maybe it just kind of depends on the situation. And it's funny because I've had a couple instances where, it's crickets, but then I would see on an end of course survey, a student would say, oh my God, to be able to see my instructor on camera was so cool,
Right.
So even if you don't hear back, you never know, who's watching or.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's different per major. And I think that's what we forget, that people who might major in a business field may not need the soft thing behavioral science type students need. And so maybe your videos are a little bit more formal, or maybe they're not. But you have to know, I'm totally agree. You have to know your students. You have to know what they need. And you have to know that videos aren't for every student. But if they're catching 20% of your students, 10% of your students, one of your that student that might fly out because they didn't understand, it's worth it for me. And I think it's worth it to so many of us here.
Definitely. When I saw a couple other pointers too about, like a 30-second approach. Find out what works for you for introductions. I find like after 2 minutes, I'm rambling, like usually in discussions, like that's usually when I'm like, okay, I've probably said enough. But also not, like you said, Michelle, not beating yourself up. You know, if you say a couple don't start over. You're fine.
Oh, I am all the time. But Screencast-O-Matic, you can cut that out. It's really awesome if you need something really good. I go in and cut my ums because I'm a horrible person. But something else, too, is I find in these big classes, I know that's been some concerns on here about big classes. What I'll do is I use that Animoto video introduction of me in the big classes. I post it in the introduction forums. So I'm right there where the students are posting as well. I use Jiffies to welcome them rather than something. And then I have my little standard and welcome to the class if they have questions. But I use Jiffies. They have little glittery ones that say welcome, and I have it on another tab. I sit there and copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. Doesn't take any longer. And they're getting cute little, I don't know, this is random, but a little bear waving saying welcome, you know, silly stuff. And in some courses that may not be appropriate, but in others. So that's faster for me in bigger courses than trying to leave a video audio.
That makes sense. We do have one question from Jamal, who was asking about the animations in the feedback box in Waypoint. And with Waypoint, we are a little bit more limited. The embedding does not work very well within Waypoint. You can link out to things, but not actually embed. So that is one of the unfortunate things. But there's lots of other places in Canvas, that we talked about. So.
And I encourage, if anybody wants to reach out, Cole, I'm so happy. I feel really blessed. In my past life too, I was in visual art. So this is just an area of passion for me. And so if anybody does want additional, because I know they couldn't see all these videos, I'm happy to share anything, a lot longer segues if they need that. So.
Definitely. Okay. Well, thank you so much. That kind of does take care of, I think, most of the questions that I saw in the chat right now. But Michelle, again, I cannot thank you enough for coming in and sharing this with us today. Just an example of like what can actually be done when you dip your toes in the water and then never look back, right? But yes, absolutely. Do feel free to reach out to Michelle or your CETO representative if you're having like tech issues with videos, stuff like that, or you want any other information, training. The CETO is always a good resource as well. Your faculty, coach, or consultant. We're always happy to chat about stuff like this. So.
And Cole, the only thing I'd add is don't be scared. I think people worry so much, or they worry how they look that day, or they worry they're not going to do it right, and it's okay. Make it fun. Make it fun.
Yeah. And I would say too, that actually helps out with that efficiency piece too, because once you actually get in and get comfortable and you're not thinking about it so much, I feel like I can respond to discussions just as quickly with video as I can typing at this point. And I'm not a bad typer. I can type pretty quick. So that's once you get into the groove of it, and yes, exactly, just kind of get over that hump of it, that daunting feeling. It does get easier for sure. So
it does. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Everybody have a great evening. If you have questions, and we'll share out. I know that I'm sorry too. I saw the issue with the links in the chat. I wasn't realizing that those weren't working well, or there was an issue. So we'll definitely share out the professional development recording link, so you can record your attendance today, along with all the links that we shared in the presentation today. I'll make sure we get Michelle's deck and mine combined, and we'll send those out for everybody to look over afterward. Thank you all so much for attending.